Hello again, everyone. It's This Week in Agribusiness meteorologist Greg Soulje. We're back in for Max Armstrong. Welcome to Farm Progress Dateline Drought. Our continuing coverage of the drought of 2012 is brought to you by Genuity Drought Guard Hybrids. Well, lots to talk about here on this get-together. The latest drought monitor map, further improvement noted over the eastern Corn Belt. Moisture coming into areas of the far northern plains, additional recharge before the ground freezes up across Big Sky, but in a different form or fashion, and some opportunity heading towards late next week, and we'll talk about it this weekend on This Week in Agribusiness of some meaningful moisture for the Great Plains. Not with this next weather system ahead over the next 2 or 3 days, but towards the second half of next week. Again, we'll detail it this weekend. On to the maps and charts. Here's a look at that U.S. drought monitor issued over the past day, and it includes significant improvement. Michigan throughout much of the eastern Corn Belt, nibbling away into sections of Wisconsin and Illinois. Look at the big improvement of late because of rains, both tropical and extratropical, throughout the eastern United States. Here's the corridor of trouble still lurking across the Great Plains, but again, we do see some sign of moisture towards and about the late portion of next week, out another 7 to 10 days. Meanwhile, we've seen improvement through northern sections of Montana. It will take on the form of a heavy-duty snowfall, complete with blizzard conditions over the next 36 hours here across North Dakota and into areas of northern Minnesota. Here is that aforementioned storm. It's a substantial winter storm taking aim at areas of Montana, extending over the course of Friday and in through Saturday. Northern portions of North Dakota, northern Minnesota. Look at this big upper air storm across the Pacific Northwest. This is the leading edge of Arctic air, deep tropical moisture, and the end result, it'll come down perhaps 5 to better than 15 inches worth. Livestock managers, take note. You'll want to get that heavier equipment parked in the shed too, extending eastward again throughout North Dakota as well as northern sections of Minnesota. Meanwhile, across the Corn Belt areas, we're going to bring about an inch to maybe as much as 3 inches of rain over the course of the weekend from Michigan to eastern Oklahoma, back up across the Ohio. Still about 10% of that corn and soybean crop yet to go from a harvest standpoint across Indiana. Much more, though, sections of lower Michigan as well as across areas of Ohio. Precipitation over the next 6 to 10 days. We do foresee additional moisture. Eastern Texas, Bayou Country, Ohio Valley, additional late season harvest and field work delays into the southeastern Corn Belt. This is a trip off of El Nino moisture. They'll take it out across sections of the Pacific West and Southwest. That's a check on weather. On to Bryce, Knorr now, and a look at markets.
Hope springs eternal. At least that's what appeared to be happening in the winter wheat market today. Futures in Chicago and Kansas City posted additional gains, with much of the buying coming on hopes U.S. export sales of wheat would soon be improving due to a series of production problems around the world that's shrinking exportable supplies. Hope is the key word here because the U.S. hasn't actually picked up any of that new business yet. In fact, today's export sales report was disappointing at just 8.1 million bushels. That's less than half the rate needed every week through the end of May to reach USDA's forecast for the marketing year. As a result, the agency may even reduce its forecast in Friday's November supply and demand report. The other reason for strength today in wheat was continued dry weather for a hard red winter wheat crop that shows no sign of letting up anytime soon. Chicago December futures rose 8.5 to 902.5, and Kansas City gained 5.5 to 937. Minneapolis couldn't match those results. Spring wheat faces plenty of competition from Canada and no threat to production yet, especially with moisture levels good on the northern plains. Minneapolis ended off a penny to 9.58 3/4 as a result. Export sales were also on the minds of soybean traders, and not in a good way. The total for the latest week was just 7.1 million bushels, a fraction of expectations because Chinese purchases appeared to be slowing. China did book around 10 million bushels, but most of those were switched from deals done earlier and listed to unknown destinations. Traders are also bracing for a likely increase in USDA's production estimate tomorrow, another reason to stay on the sidelines. More selling on Wall Street kept investors out of the market as well. January beans was unable to hold psychological support at $15, ending down 11 1/4 at $14.95 3/4. Corn followed wheat to modest gains yesterday, but sided with soybeans today, slipping lower. Export sales remain poor at 8.2 million bushels, but that's to be expected. Sales for the year could be the lowest in 40 years in order to ration tight supplies from the drought. Traders are also uncertain about USDA's production estimate tomorrow. While the average guess, including farm futures, thinks the crop is smaller, a couple of bearish estimates last week are keeping the market back on its heels. December corn ended down 3 at $7.41 1/4. Keep up with the drought situation across the country by visiting www.datelinedrought.com.